Hey everybody, and welcome to We the Voice News. All right, this is our very first episode / podcast, and we're gonna go over some of the things that have happened last week, and we want to cover those things with you. A couple of those things include the Trump acquittal that you all probably have heard about. A lot of you are probably excited about it. The other half of you are probably pretty upset about it. We're going to get into that a little bit, and after that, we are going to talk about Disney canceling star Gina Caranos over a tweet. Yes, Disney cancel culture is still strong, and we are still watching this happen every day. Not just from Disney, but from other companies like Twitter or Twatter, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, you name it, it's happening all over. If you have a voice, use it. Do not be afraid to speak out against those that are canceling others just because they have an opinion that's different from their own. Alrighty, so as we all know, last week and the week before, the Dems were trying to gather their evidence and procure a case against the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, who is no longer the President of the United States, for, inciting an insurrection on January 6th at the Capitol. We all heard these stories. We know how divisive they were from both sides of the apparatus. So, on the left, we had the people that are outraged because, this man is a white supremacist, racist. He absolutely does not deserve to be even thought about for the 2024 election. So they gathered all this evidence up that was justification for this impeachment. And as we actually found out, it was quite the opposite. It's really funny how this all happened. As we all know, during the trial, the evidence wasn't even provided to the Trump's defense team until they were actually in the hearing. Think about that. The people that had all this evidence to throw at Donald J. Trump for inciting an insurrection, they couldn't even give the evidence, and I use that word loosely, to the Trump's defense team until it already began, until the hearing had already began against Trump. All right, so let's look at kind of how the Democrats' evidence was debunked. We're going to start this off with one of Trump's defense team lawyers covering the manipulation of the video evidence that the Democrats provided in an earlier session. That is their proof for Trump inciting an insurrection on the 6th.
After this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down to the Capitol. But I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices.
Watch this.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Washington and Robert E. Lee are not the same.
No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly?
No,
I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment.
Okay, so that's the evidence that the Democratic team presented and the Republican, rather Trump team defense kind of debunked. It's interesting to note that this is a tactic that the left seem to use a lot. Is they like to take snippets of what people say and then really hone in and focus on that context and then applying whatever it is they feel like he is saying there. And often the case, it's something like being racist or a white supremacist, any of those like terms. You see this used a lot in mainstream media, and it's kind of scary to see it being used here. But what gets me really going is the fact that it appears that the Democratic team really didn't do any homework into this investigation. As we know, it's been going on for weeks now. They've had the hearings on it, and now they presented their evidence and they voted on it, and Trump was acquitted. However, what I'm about to show you guys now is some evidence that they actually didn't do that homework, and they kind of got caught on this.
You get more due process than this when you fight a parking ticket. One reason due process is so important with respect to evidence offered against an accused is that it requires an opportunity to test the integrity, the credibility, the reliability of the evidence. Here, of course, former President Trump was completely denied any such opportunity. And it turns out there is significant reason to doubt the evidence the House managers have put before us. Let me say this clearly. We have reason to believe the House managers manipulated evidence and selectively edited footage. If they did, and this were a court of law, they would face sanctions from the judge. I don't raise this issue lightly. Rather, it is a product of what we have found in just the limited time we have had since we first saw the evidence here with you this week. We have reason to believe that the House managers created false representations of tweets, and the lack of due process means there was no opportunity to review or verify the accuracy. Consider these facts. The House managers, proud of their work on the snap impeachment, staged numerous photo shoots of their preparations. In one of those, Manager Raskin is seen here at his desk reviewing two tweets side by side. The image on his screen claims to show that President Trump had retweeted one of those tweets. Now, members of the Senate, let's look closely at this screen, because obviously Manager Raskin considered it important enough that he invited the New York Times to watch him watching it. Now, what's wrong with this image? Actually, There are three things very wrong with it. Look at the date on the very bottom of the screen on Manager Raskin's computer screen when we zoom into the picture. The date that appears is January 3rd, 2020, not 2021. Why is that date wrong? Because this is not a real screenshot that he's working with. This is a recreation of a tweet, and you got the date wrong when you manufactured this graphic. You did not disclose that this is a manufactured graphic and not a real screenshot of a tweet. Now, to be fair, the House managers caught this error before showing the image on the Senate floor, so you never saw it when it was presented to you. But that's not all. They didn't fix this one. Look at the blue check mark next to the Twitter username of the account retweeted by the president. It indicates that this is a verified account, given the blue check by Twitter to indicate it is run by a public figure. The problem? The user's real account is not verified and has no blue check mark, as you can see. Were you trying to make her account seem more significant, or were you just sloppy? If we had due process of law in this case, we would know the truth. But that's not all that's wrong with this one tweet. House Manager Swalwell showed you this tweet this week, and he emphasized that this tweet reflected a call to arms. He told you repeatedly that this was a promise to call in the cavalry for January 6th. He expressly led you to believe that President Trump's supporter believed that the president wanted armed supporters at the January 6th speech, paramilitary groups, the cavalry, ready for physical combat. The problem is, the actual text is exactly the opposite. The tweeter promised to bring the Calvary, a public display of Christ's crucifixion, a central symbol of her Christian faith, with her to the president's speech, a symbol of faith, love, and peace. They just never want to seem to read the text and believe what the text means. You'll see this reported in the media last evening also. Words matter, they told you, but they selectively edited the president's words over and over again. They manipulated video.
It's crazy to think that evidence that's presented to the Senate to vote on regarding a former president, regardless of which side you were on, you'd think that the people that are presenting this evidence, the ones that are investigating the cases on both sides, would do their due diligence and investigate. Look at the evidence they have thoroughly from all angles, from both left and right viewpoints, non-bias even. It shocks me. And at the end of the day, it actually resulted in Trump being acquitted again. The vote was 56-44, and as you know, you need 2/3 majority vote for that to have actually have gone through. It's a wild 2021 already. And before we move on to our next subject, I really want to touch on one point that the main defense attorney for Trump said, and I think it really needs to be stated on both sides, and I don't think the media or anyone really puts this out there for everyone to see, so I want to put it here as well. To show you that, everything's not as what the media says it is, right? All this hatred from the right, or even all the hatred from the left, whatever it is, the rhetoric does need to stop. We need to actually tone down the temperature of this country, and we really need to cool our tempers and find good collaborative ways to fix the issues that we all have in common.
You know what's really important, which is probably the most important thing that came out of this? This country needs to cool the temperature. We need to unite as a people. There's so many common priorities that we all share that face this country in a really important way. This team of trial lawyers are simply that. We're trial lawyers. We're not politicians. We aren't on the left side or the right side or any side at all. We had a constitutional duty to defend our client, and we did that to the best of our abilities. But what I want to say, and I wanted to convey in there, was that our country needs to face the business in front of it with all seriousness and purpose, love and peace in our hearts, and move the ball forward so that this great nation can get as strong as possible in the face of this pandemic. It's absolutely crucial that this country move forward in unity, put it away the partisan backlash back and forth, and do everything that we can to find justice every day in our lives. Thank you.
You know, I think that's a good message. Again, I think it needs to be said on both sides, from not just, a defendant of the 45th president, but from, Senate leaders, politicians, left and right. I think a lot of the people in this country are on the same page. They don't like the violence. They don't like the divisive hate that there appears to be from the left and right sides. We don't want that. I think we all need to come together and cool the temperatures down in this country. It was perfectly said, and I needed to let you guys see that, so you heard every word, and I hope you feel the same way in that regard. Alrighty, so on to the next topic, and this topic is definitely controversial. As we all know, recently it appears that Disney had fired previous star Gina Carano for a tweet, and I'm going to display this tweet right now for you. So, in my eyes, I think the point of this tweet was to imply one thing, is that hate starts out as something that, it could be very small at first, and then it can grow. And as it grows, it can become worse and worse. And as we've seen throughout the course of history, what happened in World War II, what happened with all of the Jews, and what the Nazi soldiers did to them, and how awful that was. History is important. We need to understand that so we don't repeat it, right? It's a pretty famous quote that's out there. And the point that I think Gina was trying to get at was it didn't start off with Hitler having all these troops and going around rounding up all the Jews and putting them in concentration camps. That didn't happen that way. It started off with this: a neighbor reporting another neighbor for not complying with the rule or with a law or something. And then that grew into something more. And then her tweet, if you see it, there's children chasing a woman around, beating her. That is a problem. It started off as something so small and grew into something big. And I think the video that I actually just played with the temperature that we need to cool off, and the lawyer saying that this country needs to kind of settle down the tempers, because it's leading to something like this, right? Look how divisive our country is right now, from the left and the right. We hate each other. There's nothing but hate. Go on social media, you see it all the time. You can't post an opinion if you're if you lean on the left or if you lean on the right, because the opposite side will just find ways to make you feel like garbage, and it needs to stop. But don't think that people are sitting around doing nothing about it. I mean, Gina got fired from Disney, but that didn't silence her, right? No, she actually resisted. It's kind of funny because, she was in Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and, she's just such a badass character in that show. It's awesome to see her carry that character to who she really is in real life. So, as we all know, Gina got a deal with the Daily Wire, where she is going to direct and probably produce in her own film. So, awesome. It's nice to know that even though Disney silenced her and fired her, that she has found another avenue for another voice. And I think we all need to be able to speak our concerns, our thoughts, our opinions. They all need to be heard. We all need to have open discussions. without the nasty rhetoric and the hate and everything else that goes along with having a different opinion. Alrighty, that's going to wrap up our first We the Voice episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all for listening, and we look forward to next time. You can follow us on Facebook and Telegram, and as well as Gab. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.